Alright, I figured out. Get a little closer. Alright, I figured out what I was doing wrong with kinetic energy. Kinetic energy, I was doing 1/2 kinetic energy equals mass times velocity squared. Essentially, it can be done. I think I was. Wait, what was I even saying? 1/2 kinetic energy? No, I was leaving. I was leaving out the 1/2. So I was doing kinetic energy equals mass times velocity squared. So mass times velocity squared. I was saying that basically the photonic energy can travel whichever way, so long as you have one representation, one variable of the velocity of the speed of light, then you have every variable that you need. So it wasn't like a pi, it wasn't like 3.14 to infinity, or squaring every little bit of energy. And that's how I got sort of the presumptuous religious notion that the energy, that the pockets of energy, the clumps of Feynman's electromagnetism could exist anywhere, and that energy would travel from different point sources in the universe, which was obviously wrong. The point sources have to be established reality, like factual in their measurements. So it took me about 10 hours after watching the video this morning to kind of understand that yes, this was like the original thought I had with wave-particle duality, where there is a particle, or just constantly, like in the beginning, just my head being just bombarded with the idea that that the particle is separate from the lambda. So the lambda, the wave, exists with the sigma, the particle, and that's the wave-particle duality. So I understood that theoretically, but I just didn't understand the kinetic energy equation. So obviously Maxwell's equations are a little bit out of my league right now. I was trying to understand them, but I basically got to the part where they equate theoretically that the particle is separate from the reality, the particle is separate from the matter, and that that particle can have established measurement, like a real variable in that matter. So it can exist basically in two places. So that's how kinetic energy, the infallible, the perfect equation, kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass velocity squared. You have velocity squared, or you have your photonic energy beam, and you have that squared, and you also have, so then you have 1/2 your mass. This is the mass. You take 1/2 of the mass, and you take the velocity squared, and then that's how you have two particles, and that's how you have one particle existing outside of matter, and that's your wave-particle duality. So it's not mass velocity squared. Mass velocity squared is just nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense, especially you could have mass, you could have this mass velocity squared, but then how did the photonic energy get split, right? So that's the impediment, or the moon in the eclipse is this impediment, and the gravitational lensing, or the bending of sun around the moon, it's not supposed to bend like that. There's not supposed to be the diffraction, or the reflection of energy, if you will, in that realm of the experiment. So they say that the light that exists, or the light that shoots through, like, over the moon and exists in front of the moon in the solar eclipse from the famous experiment that made Einstein who Einstein is today, that energy has to exist, or sorry, that the photons that break that energy, like this fourth dimension that doesn't exist, Einstein didn't understand it, and Einstein can't even understand the fourth dimension, yet people all over the world claim to know the fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up to, like, what, 33 dimensions. So I mean, that's pretty much a joke. Einstein couldn't even understand the fourth dimension. So that's what I'm going to keep telling people, because it's criminal. But yeah, so you have your particle duality when the light, gravitational lensing, gets around the moon, which should be theoretically impossible, because how is it going to bend like that? Other than with, I mean, unless you believe in particle theory, because then you can just say, oh well, it's just a three-dimensional universe, and there's going to be obvious radiation, or there's going to be obvious diffraction, let's say, in what we're seeing, especially if it's from your naked eye. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, I'm just saying, like, the gravitational lensing, it exists because the duality, the particles of the photonic energy particle, like one ray going outside of the moon, the other ray going inside, and this is done in the slit and the double slit. This is the impediment. The double slit is the impediment. It's very confusing. The double slit experiment, it's not confusing, it's just you got to understand how they're doing the double slit and how they're doing the single slit and how they really do manipulate this to their advantage. Like, just what the hell are they doing? It's like they're McDonald's, selling Subway sandwiches or something. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like the Catholic Church having, like Baphomet statues around or something. It just doesn't make any logical sense that they give people misinformation, because it's physics. It's supposed to be based on truth and reality and everything like that. So to wrap it up, like, you have a duality. That duality exists because the velocity is squared, okay? And I'm just saying, equationally, the velocity is squared, and then you have half the mass. So this part that is, you could say this part is shaded, and this part is receiving the sun, but the shaded part is halved, and that is how that velocity of that light is able to exist, just theoretically, equationally, mostly Maxwell. Okay, again, let me say that Leibniz and Chatelet doing the clay experiment, they're saying when the first ball hits the clay and the second ball hits the clay, this ball is heavier that hits the clay. They both make the same indentation, therefore they both have the same synergy, the same energy, the same dramatic equation will solidify what they are in the universe, how they exist in the universe, and that design is for the duality of the universe. Like there's my doorknob, and then now I don't know if my doorknob exists anymore. It's that insane. it's that Savantian. It's just miraculous. It's just a religion. Yeah, it's a Holy Ghost thing. But yeah, so what else? That's Leibniz. That's in the late 1700s, right after Newton, and then Maxwell's equations over 150 years ago, or over 150 years after, right before Einstein. This is what Einstein based his theory off of, is matter, the photonic energy, the matter still existing, the electrons and protons still existing, and the particles are separated by the equation. It's just the conservation of energy equation, how one particle has a point source, and that point source can exist outside and also have a place in reality, even though it's essentially non-existing. And that's how they do their kinetic energy equals half mass velocity squared, in my opinion.